Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is David, aka Wally for High on Beats production tutorial videos. Today I'm going to talk about a little technique which I like to call self-sidechaining. It's sort of a variant on parallel sidechaining, which we'll also talk about. I'm not sure if self-sidechaining is the actual proper term or if there is at all any proper term to describe this technique. If there happens to be one, please let me know. Let's start right away with parallel compression, which is also known as New York style compression. And this is a style of compression. I'm going to be saying compression a lot on this video. It's a style of compression that is used a lot on drum buses or drum groups. For the example today, I'm going to be using a little drum loop, which we have right here. And what we're going to do to it is we're going to start by creating two chains into which the audio is going to go into. So we're going to start by going into our effects, creating an audio effect rack, and creating two chains. This is the way I like to do it. You could also do it with sends, or depending on which DAW you're using, whichever effect module works for you. We're going to lower the volume of each chain a little bit. We're going to have one chain, which is going to be our slightly compressed, or we're going to call it the dry chain, and one chain is going to be our compressed chain. And this whole rack we will call New York for compression. So basically what we would do here is put a compressor on one of these chains and compress. I'm going to solo this. Compress heavily. Going to give it a little bit more knee. So as you can hear, I'm totally squishing the sound, removing the dynamics and really making it nice and square. This is gonna help and bring out some of the background elements, and it's going to basically bring all the sounds up to give or take the same level. And we're going to keep a dry chain. Now usually you might want to put a compressor on this one too and just slightly compress. In this case we're going to keep it totally dry. And we can, this is our dry chain, and then we can gradually add some ambience to it. I'm not pronouncing that right, am I? Some background information or background sound to our drum loop, which can add an interesting effect, a sense of space, and a sense of, especially if you have a lot of stereo information, if you mic your drum yourself, if you had a lot of stuff going on the room mics, for example. All right, so this is parallel or New York style compression. What we're going to do, we're going to take it to a whole another level and using it in a sort of more of a creative way. Now this technique is one that I like to use on, well, basically anything. We're going to start by using it on a synth, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to create once again an audio effect rack, create two chains. I'm not going to take the time to name these all the time, but you get the point. We're going to keep one chain dry. This is going to be our dry chain, and this is going to be our, well, effect chain, if you will. We're going to put a compressor on this chain, heavily compress, and we're also going to turn on the side chaining. And we're going to sidechain to itself, in this case, the synth pre-effect. So it's going to take the signal that's, well, before this audio effect rack or before any audio effect rack, and it's going to use that as a signal to compress the signal in this chain. What we're going to do is we're going to use a time-based effect, in this case let's start with reverb with a very long decay. Let's listen to just this with the comp on. Actually, let's start by just listening to the dry, sort of a paddy, bassy synth that patch I made for you guys. Let's listen to the affected. You can see still hear the reverb trail as it goes off because my decay time is so huge. We're gonna get this all the way wet because we already have a dry channel. So you can see the tail in this case is super long, goes way beyond what the release is on the tail. So the release on the synth itself. So if we turn on the compressor, basically what's going to happen is that we're going to sort of gate the signal. This reverb sound is not going to come into effect until I've released the key and the dry sound completely goes off. So let's listen to what that does. Compress some more. So if we turn on the dry chain, we can up the ratio a little bit. So as you can see, while I'm holding that key down, you're only getting, well, pretty much only getting the dry chain out of it. Once I release it, the compressor releases and we can only hear the reverb. This is giving us a pretty cool effect, and we're gonna emphasizing by making the dry chain completely mono. And so you can really see that once the reverb kicks in, reverb being a very stereo-based and time-based effect, once I release the key, it goes from a very mono sound to a super spread out, super stereo sound, and we can even, you know, add a spreader to our effect, which makes it even more spread out. So this is our first example of self-side chaining on a synth. We're going to take that to a rim shot and vary a little bit the effect that we're going to be using. Okay, let's go for 2 chains again, keeping 1 dry, and then our self-compression on the rim shot channel. Okay, and heavily comping. And in this case, still keeping this dry, let's try and use a series of effects before the compressor. We're going to go with some, I really like the ping pong delay, which is kind of cheesy, but it's fun. Let's start by building our chain before we put any compressor on it. This is the sound I chose. All right, and well, let's go all out and frequency shift it. Gives you an idea. Let's even, you know what? Let's add some saturation to it and make it really weird. Maybe a little bit of reverb too. This chain is getting complicated, I know, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. It doesn't have to be all the way wet. All right, now let's turn that compressor on. Now you have to sort of imagine the rest of the drums being input into this, but obviously you can see that as long as you're getting the sound of the snare in, you're not hearing the effect. So if our trail becomes long enough, you're actually compressing the tail of the previous rim shot into the next rim shot, and then adding the effect to it gets slightly complex, but it can actually give you a really rich sound. Let's get into one last example. I've got a vocal snippet courtesy of the singer of my band, Risk. Shout out to Ella Grave.
Out here the sun don't shine.
All right, and we're gonna go ahead and use our parallel self-side-chaining compression again, and see how that sounds here. Once again, compression. I'm using the sort of classical view on the compressor, as I haven't really looked into the new ones in Ableton 9 yet. Those should be cool, but I'm kind of used to this one. You can use whichever compressor you want, as long as it has a sidechain, obviously, because that's the main part of this. Let's go ahead and same sort of deal, time-based effect. And
out here the sun don't shine. Out here the sun don't shine.
I'm gonna filter delay that. So as you can see, with all these effects on, it makes it really hard to actually understand what Ella is saying, or singing in this case. If we turn on the self-side-chaining compression, I have to turn this back on.
Here the sun don't shine.
Let's try that again.
Out here the sun don't shine.
So this makes it a bit more interesting because you can actually hear the words and then still have a nice reverb tail to it, and basically have the bread and the money of the bread, or best of both worlds, pretty much is what I'm saying. And go ahead and use the dry wet if you want less or more of this effect, and of course play around with the volumes of each chain to get to the result that you want. Alright, so that pretty much covers our little tutorial on self-side chaining. Other things you can do right before I conclude this, obviously you've got two chains, so you can get really creative, or add chains, or add different non-time based effects to each chain, so that you have sort of two completely different sounds coming in and out when you're pressing the key or releasing it, or in the case of drums, while the drums are playing, or while they're not playing. Anyways, you get the gist of it. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you guys next time. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to post them up in the comment section of YouTube, or send an email. My email is posted in the info of the video. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you guys next time.